Taking tests online can be very different from taking tests in person. Obviously, there's a screen and there's more typing involved, but there are questions of getting used to new software and understanding the new workflow with an online test. Let's take a look today at three primary questions that people have when they start working with online tests, and then we'll resolve these questions in the interface itself. The three questions for today are going to be, what do I need to know before taking an online test? What program do I use for online tests? And what if something breaks while I'm taking the test? Let's look at the interface and resolve these questions. When you first enter your course, you're going to want to identify where the assessments are. The week in blue is the current week, so we know we're here right now, and this is what it looks like from a student's view with an active week. Sometimes the instructor will indicate where the assessments are by putting the word assessment or quiz or test, but you can always tell it's an assessment type by this icon over here. The check over a piece of paper means it is an assessment, quiz, test, exam, etc. So we're going to click on this, and then some information comes up before we can even attempt the quiz. Let's take a minute to understand what this means for us and how we're going to plan out our quiz taking based upon it. It's very important to understand how many attempts we can take when the quiz opens and closes. So very importantly, we must have all of our answers submitted by July 23rd at 11:31 a.m. exactly. After that point, we cannot submit any more. And some quizzes do have time limits depending upon what the instructor chooses. This one has a time limit of 30 minutes. This information has also been written out by the instructor up here, and some information about what concepts are going to be covered this week. It's important to read all of this information down here, and a lot of times the instructor will write stuff up here. Not always, though, so do check all the information if possible. So now let's take a look at what it looks like to go into the quiz itself. There are different quiz question types. So we're going to agree to proceed. Our time limit has started after we click this, and our limit of one attempt will be activated after this as well. So to say yes, I want to start my time and use my attempt. And now we are in. So we have 30 minutes. Here's the timer. And let's look at these questions. So there's three question types we're going to preview today. One is a multiple choice question. So which of the following is not a work by Frank Lloyd Wright? Let's choose one of these three. I'm going to guess it is the Unity Chapel, and click Next. Another quiz question type you may see is going to be a short answer where you'll have to type in a word or a phrase. So the Guggenheim Museum of Bilbao is an example of which architectural movement. Write your answer in the blank space below. I'm going to make a guess of deconstructivism and submit. Another quiz question type is the essay. And you'll know this is an essay because it'll have this big space down here, and then it'll have this text editor where you can format and you can add media and all these kinds of things. So the question is, based upon the criteria in Lesson 1, describe how the features in the below diagram contribute to a sustainable design. Your answer should be between 200 and 400 words. So this is a bit of a more complicated case. One question that does come up is, what kind of software should I use when I'm going into Moodle? And there's different types of software you can use. Obviously, constructing your answer in the text editor here is possible. For example, I can start by saying the sustainable design criteria in week 1 that we see here is, and then I can write my essay down here. Some students are more used to using Microsoft Word for composing and for spell checking and that kind of thing, which is fine. So you'll open your Microsoft Word window, you'll type what you have over here, select all of it, and you can Control V over here to copy and paste. You could submit it that way as well. Do make sure you look over it to make sure it is what you want it to look like. And finally, if you want to add some media, it is possible. For example, if you like to add an image, you can do that. If you like to add a link, you can do that as well. And there's some advanced formatting, for example, bolding and italic as well. Once I feel good with this, I'm going to keep my eye on the time, and I'll edit this if I need to. But once it gets down to a few minutes left, I probably am going to want to submit. So I make it under that 30-minute time. If I don't submit this by under 30 minutes, then this question will not count. So I'm going to click Next to submit. And this is the screen that comes up. So it's a confirmation. You've already answered all these. If I'd like to, I can return to certain attempts. I do have some time left, so it does allow me to go back on these attempts. For example, if I want to change these and actually add the link itself, I can do that. And now I've had an edited copy. I can click next, and it updates my copy. So those are the programs you can use for online tests. You have Moodle, you have Microsoft Word to compose your answers. And once you feel good about your test at the end, you can submit all and finish. Now, another question the students have is, what if something breaks while I'm taking the test? So let's say you are on the second question over here, and the screen freezes or your connection drops or anything like that. The best method is to save what you have so far by way of clicking next through. That does save it within here. So even if your connection drops, whatever you've clicked next past, so for example question 1, we've clicked next, that will save in the system. And even if that 30 minutes expires, that question 1 will still be saved in the system. So it is a good idea to click through and do next, just as a saving mechanism. On top of that, if something does break, if it freezes or if your connection is dropped and you have to restart your computer, that kind of thing, do your best to take a screenshot, either by having some, Google has some great plugins. A lot of times you can simply use a print screen function on Microsoft, for example, on any PCs. Try and provide evidence of where you've gotten so far, so that later on if you need to submit to an instructor that this is as far as they got, you have some of that as well. A third method is simply using a smartphone and taking a screen capture of what you used so far. Make sure your name is up here so they can identify who the user is. And then communicate with your instructor. Look, I tried to get this far. Please understand that something happened. And then there's no guarantees, but it is a good evidence-based way of pleading your case to an instructor that you need an exception, and see if you can submit a test in an alternate method. One way to get in contact with your instructor is through the syllabus up here, which can appear in the top row, or also here in course resources. The instructor information should be in there. And also if you go down to roster, you have the contact information of your instructor will be available if you click in here, right? So you have the email address there as well. So those answer our principal 3 questions. If you have any more questions about other features inside of getting started with online learning, check out our menu over here on the right-hand side.